Jesus. What a difference a week can make. Last Sunday we were rejoicing in lovely spring weather. Yesterday it was sleet on the flowers. I tried pretending that it was just lovely apple blossom petals fluttering to earth, but nah, didn't work. And here this morning we are returned to a darker place where Jesus' friends are feeling defeated, cringing in fear and helplessness in a locked room. For all they know, at this point, Jesus is stone dead in the tomb and rotting, and the authorities are trying to hunt them down too. Jesus may be out of his tomb at this point, but his friends are still stuck in their dark place until he shows up to rescue them. They're all there, that is, except for one, Thomas. It doesn't say why he wasn't there. I mean, you'd think he would be, right? If for no better reason than to save his own skin. After all, if the others are afraid for their lives, why wasn't he? Or did he not care anymore if he lived or died? The death of someone you love and admire can do that to you. You find yourself thinking, go ahead and kill me if you want to. I'm already dead anyway. So Jesus shows himself to his friends. But right after he does, the interesting thing is what he says to them. I mean, he could say anything he wanted to, right? He could tell them where he had been and what it was like over there. That would have been interesting. He could have asked them for something to eat the way he does in Luke. But here, he immediately gives them a job to do. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained. Could this mean that being with Jesus means becoming a forgiving person? I think so. It certainly means being a forgiven person. After all, that's the only way we get to be with Jesus, not by being spiritual all-stars, but by being forgiven. And this is supposed to boil over in how we treat each other. But I think this notion of forgiveness is the connection between the first bit of the story about the disciples and the second bit about Thomas. See, whatever else forgiveness involves, it always means restoring a relationship to the way it is supposed to be. Full forgiveness always means moving to the sort of relationship you are supposed to have with someone who has violated that relationship, whatever that ends up being. Sometimes it may bring you closer to that person. And sometimes it may lead you to a proper degree of separation. Forgiveness is not inconsistent with, I don't really ever need to see you again. But whatever it is, it brings us to love one another wisely and appropriately. That's what forgiveness does. Now, I'm sure Jesus and Thomas had a very close relationship. We don't know a whole lot about how they got along, but there's one tantalizing hint. See, Thomas has spoken one other time in John's Gospel. And the circumstances are important. Jesus had just told his friends that he's going to Jerusalem, and they're all shocked. Why do you want to go to that place? Don't you know they want to kill you there? It is Thomas then who says, let's go with him so we can die with him. Strong words, the brave words of a devoted friend. But now look where we are. Here they all are, except for Jesus. They're all alive. He's the only one who's dead. None lifted a finger to help him. Talk about survivor guilt. I shouldn't be here. When you've failed someone, it is very hard to look that person in the eye. You may find yourself staying away from anything that reminds you of him. And you will certainly stay away from the people who heard your proud boast and might throw your proud words back in your face. No wonder Thomas wasn't there that day. I might not have been there myself. And here's another thing. Sometimes when you're really guilty, you find some reason to get mad at the person you hurt. Have you ever done that? I know I have. The shame is just too unbearable, and so you get mad. And it's not even that you're trying to blame the one you hurt for what you did. You just need to fill up that hole in your soul with something, so anger will do it. So here's Thomas raging, unless you show me the marks of the nails, you guys can just forget it. When Thomas said this, I wonder whether the other disciples just glanced at one another. They knew what he was up to. So what does Jesus do? Again, what could he have done? He could have said, Thomas, I told you what I was going to do. Why didn't you remember? Did you think I was lying? Or he could have said, Thomas, I did not like the way you talked to my friends. But instead he says, Thomas, look, it's me. Will this help? That is, he offers exactly what Thomas had asked for. If this will help you, Thomas, here it is. It's not even noted in the text whether Thomas in fact touched the wounds. There are some paintings of this scene in which he is inspecting them closely, but it doesn't say that he did. Maybe he didn't even need to touch them. He just knew who it was. But how very gently Jesus approaches his old friend. This shows us something important about the art of forgiveness. And I call it an art because there's no formula for it. It's something we learn by experience from watching those who are really good at forgiving. Maybe we learn the most from those who have forgiven us. We learn from whatever it was they did to make us feel that they really meant it. The details will vary from one situation to another, from one person to another. But one key certainly is to be very clear about who this person is that we're dealing with, how he needs to be approached, what will matter to him, what he needs, what might trigger him. Don't do that. Jesus' way of forgiving Thomas is different from the way that he will forgive Peter. After all, they're different men, but both times it worked. And both times again, and most importantly, notice the gentleness of Jesus' approach. And finally, we note that Jesus gets right to the heart of what really went wrong between them. Because here again, we all know many times the issue that we think is the issue isn't the real issue at all. I've been suggesting that Thomas feels really bad about breaking a promise to go die with Jesus. He's got all this survivor guilt. But what if that's not the real problem? After all, Jesus did not actually want his friends to die with him. Thomas, I didn't take it the wrong way that you didn't die with me, because that's not what you were supposed to do anyway. I had to die alone. Don't feel bad about that, Thomas. But with deep insight into who we are and how we feel and what's going on the inside, Jesus characteristically goes right to the heart of what went wrong. And it was a problem which Thomas might not even have suspected or noticed. Jesus says, don't doubt, Thomas, but believe. On the surface, it might seem that Jesus is saying, Thomas, don't doubt that I've been raised from the dead. See, it's not a crazy rumor. Here I am. But if that were so, we might expect Thomas to say, oh, I'm sorry. You really were raised after all. I see you now. But what Jesus is suggesting goes deeper, and it's bigger. Thomas, you doubted me. Please don't do that. And Thomas replies, bang on target, with the best possible answer and fervently, my Lord and my God. That is, sir, you have won my entire trust and devotion. Lord, I will never doubt you again. And that is precisely the point that they needed to be brought to be together again in the right